I guess someone sent it to me.
Oh, approval of the agenda first?
So,
Yeah, I guess we could.
Mr. Chairman, and Sam, just help me through this.
I'll do my best.
I had a lot of, I won't say a lot, I did have some adjustments to the agenda. So how do I do that, Sam, officially? You know, I read the book. It doesn't really go into how I do this. Do I just state what I'd like to change?
Yeah, you could make a motion to amend the agenda. And if it gets seconded and there's a majority vote, you can do that, or, you know, you can discuss these things ahead of time. But once the agenda is posted, I don't like to take it down and repost it. It messes with people. Some people just look long enough to see it once and then they show up and the agenda is different and they didn't know, and it just affects trust is what it does. So
I would like to amend the agenda and add one point. I'm going to simplify everything I wrote here and add one point about a discussion on the creation of committees. Do I hear a second? Is that what has to happen? Second, my motion to add that to the agenda?
okay, hold on a second. So my advice would be, if you're gonna amend the agenda, it's better to remove things than to add things. Because that's when people really get upset, is when they don't know a conversation is gonna happen. You can talk about having it on the next agenda. But I think that it would be a great idea for you to, I mean, you guys can, but it's the public perception is probably have some issues there.
We'll just leave it and we'll iron it out for next time.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Okay,
I can,
all right, so.
I approve the agenda. I move to, what was, I move
That
we
we
approve
approve
the
the
agenda.
agenda. Second.
Okay.
Second that,
All in favor?
all in favor? All right, great. So let's take a look at the minutes. And next week we'll have these, or next month we'll have these ahead of time, but tonight we're just gonna take a look just to confirm that's what we talked about last month.
Did we just talk, do we have to raise our hand and go through you and just discuss these openly?
You're talking about the minutes?
Yeah, the minutes.
Well, yeah, no, I think, do we have, unfinished or any corrections here to the minutes? Let me see, no. Great.
We're learning our process. Generally, yes, a motion and a second,
Yeah.
and that opens discussion
Oh,
before a vote.
so I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
You want to ask for discussion first? Have a discussion of anything?
Oh,
No. All in favor?
sure. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
In favor of making a motion to approve the minutes?
There's already a motion and a
Okay.
second. So I'm in favor of that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
This is.
Are you asking for a vote?
We're good, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are, we are.
Yeah.
All right.
It's,
I think we were doing better before Robert's
yeah, I
rules.
know,
Right.
I'm giving it.
All right.
Okay. Oh, can I ask just a quick question inserted now that I see that, the appointment of secretary? You're not doing like the minutes, right? Someone from this board has to do the minutes for the.
She'll do the action.
So I'm doing action minutes. The secretary would take, I noticed that with your guys' minutes, you guys take way better notes than I would post clerk. So that would be your official note taker. I'm just gonna do action minutes.
Okay.
That's it.
And this is recorded, so if I was taking minutes, I could just go back and listen.
Well,
to
and
it.
you don't have to worry about minutes. I'll do minutes. You'd just be taking notes so you can keep track of stuff. Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do that. Thank you. Action.
All right, first item of business is town update. Mark, can you provide a little update on our meeting? Sure.
So,
Okay.
so Greg and I met with Corey and Nikki,
Sam.
and Sam was there. Oh, thank you. I dropped out. And I'll go over what we talked. It was a great meeting. I think we met for an hour, maybe a bit longer.
When was that?
It was, I don't know, last Tuesday,
Okay.
maybe?
That's Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Tuesday, you're right, Tuesday.
So these are my main takeaways. They're kind of in order of how the meeting went. This first one is owner of right-of-way trees. We still do not have a definite black and white code of who owns those trees, and who's, no, I'm sorry, who, the responsibilities between the property owner and the town. We didn't go into it, it's a gray area, we don't know. Number two is that we decided on a contact protocol. So Corey or Nikki know who to call. They're gonna start with Greg. If they can't get a hold of him, they'll go to me. If they can't get a hold of me, they'll go to Tom.
Okay.
So that's how it is right now. We stressed, or they stressed, meaning the public works folks, to develop a right-of-way tree maintenance program and a park tree maintenance program. And for public works. And basically, that's something Greg's been talking about for 4 years. So they really stress the importance of that. Corey needs to get a shape file for the 2024 park tree inventory.
A what file?
A shape, it's a CAD, it's a GIS file that has the like locations of all the trees that Cammy just did. So we don't know how to get that to him. It's probably a simple process.
Tom might know.
Tom might know. It's a shape file that I don't know if Cammy has access to or where that
Right,
comes from.
so either Tom or Cammy.
So I'm gonna work with Corey on that.
Shake, S-H-A-K-E?
Yeah, .shp. That's the way Esri is the program that does the GIS stuff. It's a shape file. A shape file quickly are layers. So you have a tree layer, you have a utilities layer, you have a streets layer, you have a boundaries layer. All these things stack up on each other. They're all shape files. Corey also he has this tree assessment app. So when he gets called to look at a tree, he can go through this app on his phone that goes through some, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 conditions that he might want to know about the tree. And so I'm going to help him with that. They also talked about budgeting. What we can do, some of our budget we have for 2025, how that can help them. We can get into a little more detail on that, but it's basically paying for some work that, the town doesn't have, or that the property owners don't have. So I won't get into the weeds there, but we need to work with him on the budget, our budget and how we can help them. Number 7, the permit process. Public Works acknowledged that this is important. They feel it's as important as we do, as evidenced by those top trees we just saw 2 weeks ago on what was the street?
North Fork.
Thank you, on North Fork. And then we brought up training. They have some new folks and they would appreciate some tree pruning training that we did last year. So those were the main points that we talked about. And we discussed them at more length, but those are the main takeaways I have.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And then I talked to Corey briefly outside of, he was actually in our neighborhood working on a water issue. And we talked briefly of this app he has. And so I wrote down a bunch of things that he and I talked about. So he's going to let me know when we can meet and just go over that app. So those are my takeaways.
And so this shape file would fit into his app? This
Yeah.
is not Code
It
Tree View?
would
Something
fit
else?
into the Esri town map,
Okay,
GIS.
okay,
It's got to be something simple. I just don't know where it comes from.
yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Good job, yeah.
Oh, and I was going to amend the agenda. We must. Oh, no, sorry. It's number 3. I was. There it is.
Okay, it's there, great.
Build it in that, and I'll take it back again.
All right, does that complete our town update? Mark, that's,
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Again, broad stroke stuff, so we talked about we talked about some detail on that, and a lot of it's in our court. A lot of what we talked about is in our court. The establishment of pruning and maintenance plans. That's up to us.
Could I add?
sure,
Just a couple of things, so, I know you also discussed, so we've opened up the lines of communications so that the chair and vice chair meet with Public Works once a month. And then once a quarter with Stefan, it's about developing protocol and processes, which I heard a lot about how the tree board can most effectively work with the town. And actually get stuff done instead of getting stuck on one side of an issue with no idea where to go, so. That would be the only thing I would add. It was, I think, the first overview of a meeting that'll be able to be utilized much more effectively in the future.
Very good.
great. Ready for item number 2, appointment of secretary.
What were you looking when you said that?
I don't know, I heard something over here. So yeah, we need a secretary, and I guess our thought was to ask you, Christina, to be
Okay,
the secretary.
so far, so good.
Tom said he wouldn't do it.
Tom said he
is
would
good
not.
at-
He
yeah,
would not do it. He said.
Right,
I'd do it, but I guess I'm already this chair, so I can't.
I mean,
that's fine. We'll see how it goes. Yep. That's all good.
and Sam is gonna be doing the action minutes, right? So you're capturing.
I'll be taking care of minutes, so it'll be just mostly, like I said, you guys kept really good notes on everything you discussed and things that you were gonna follow up on, so I just don't want you to lose that process, and I won't be doing that.
Yeah.
And the videos are nice, but trust me, when you have to go looking through them to find one thing, it's tedious, so.
I nominate Christina Patterson to be secretary. So I have a second.
Second that.
Hey,
All in favor?
Yay. Okay.
any discussion?
We'll see how it goes. So far, so good.
Sure.
Okay.
And we'll have it.
Oh, it's fun. It's minutes.
Okay.
All right, the third item of business is website update.
Paula was gonna meet with Ruben, but then I talked to Paul and Paul said, why don't you come on down? So we met with Ruben
Okay,
and just went over the transition from the initial website that John built and folded into the town's website. And there's a few things that didn't need to be there. And then he'll revise a couple of other things. And then we'll get a chance to take a look at it and come up with any more changes. But that's something Ruben's working on.
so migrating the current
That's the word.
info over,
Porting it over to the same look and feel as a town site.
okay,
I'll
great.
give you a draft before it's published, so you can review it and make any additional changes or recommendations.
Yeah, so
Sounds good.
he's taking the content and make it look like the rest of the town.
Gotcha.
Kind of.
So is this just to take what's there now, or is it to try to update the tree list info?
I gave him an updated tree list,
Okay,
remembering that it's a dynamic document.
okay,
We can change it at any time.
and that tree list specifies different, like it has
It's-
different
it's-
sizes and
it's-
different locations,
It's right-of-way trees.
right away trees,
It's,
okay.
it's a specified list for species for right-of-way trees, both, for lack of a better, above 40 feet and then below power lines, below 35 feet.
Gotcha,
And so that list can be edited. Now, I just did the right-of-way trees. I did not give him a list of just trees for panel. Did I? Okay, just right-of-way trees right now. We probably need to eventually put on
I think Cammy's
Just
has some of that info in the appendix.
trees for panel.
Yeah, let's look at that.
The other thing he does have on the website is trees that are not recommended.
Okay. And is that, you said that's a dynamic?
That can be dynamic as well.
Yeah, okay, but more. Yeah, okay, great. Anything else on website update?
Am I gonna get all that stuff from Paula, I guess? I'll do that. Contact Paula, like all the stuff in the historical archives, and that sort of stuff. Like what she has on how to keep going the tree board and. who we're
Tree
applying
City
to. Yeah.
USA, right,
So I'll contact her.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Action
You should
item.
have all received an invite to a shared folder through SharePoint for you guys to store those documents where you'd all be able to have access to them. You might look at your town emails for that.
Okay.
If it came from Ruben, I probably didn't get it.
Well, if you can't find it, you let me know and I will resend
Okay, thank you.
But that brings up the point about protocol. I mean, that Keyboard USA thing, it needs to be
Yeah.
written out to know how to do it. I think Paula's got it.
Everything, all the archives of, you know.
Yeah.
That good stuff.
All right,
Okay.
finished with item number 3, moving on to item 4. Discussion on tree topping concerns.
So I'd like to start with that. What I was gonna talk about in the agenda is this should be moved into the overall discussion on tree permitting. This is just one example of why we need this tree permit process. So instead of just discussing this particular issue, it involves a lot bigger issue that we need to talk about. We've been talking about it for months.
Yeah, right. The reason I put it on here is because it's happening. And and I brought it up with town and we're all like wondering how to proceed, what do we do? And it's touchy topic. But it, we just had this tree that was topped earlier this month, I guess, with Brandon on Northport.
Oh, those, yeah. Yeah, that's a three.
That's a huge tree.
Yeah, and, for the record, like, these are right-of-way trees. There are other trees that are being topped too, but the right-of-way trees is supposed to go through the process of communication with the town. The town reaches out to tree board. We referenced the existing inventory to take a look at the notes from Cammie's most recent inventory, which would have said that, this particular tree was in good shape. And then being able to provide some guidance, some advice, from Tom as an arborist. So what are your thoughts on what we need to do? I hear, Mark, you're saying this would be part of the permitting. We've been talking about permitting for several years and trying to figure that out. I did post on Facebook, you saw that, Jack. It was more informational, just like, it just was like, hey, we're the tree board and we're trying to get more community outreach this year. And I posted an article about tree topping just as a reference point, just, educational.
Make content partly.
What's that?
Go ahead. I have something I'll add in a minute.
Yeah, okay. But as far as, in my mind, this falls on tree cutters. I mean, I know we have quite a few tree cutters that can come into this area. We've tried to reach out in the past to inform the tree cutters that we want them to communicate with the town, because the right-of-way trees the town has some ownership in those trees. But anyway, so we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to proceed. So I'm opening the floor to thoughts. Yeah.
When do we address the public? After each section or at the very end of the meeting?
I want to hear his thoughts
Let's give it
here.
a chance, but do I have to go up there and be on record?
That's up to them, their protocol, and you
Do you care?
can have public do it just like in our regular meetings, people are allowed to talk on each
Yeah.
topic. And then the overarching one, so however you are comfortable doing it.
Let's hear your thoughts and then let's open up to Jack.
Make
All
it-
right. Well, what I want,
Well, maybe it'll just be one of you out here. Sometimes.
It's just important in the protocol.
Is we
Yeah.
have, when we look at the agenda, and this was what my appendages to the agenda was all about, we have too many things. Way too many things that we found in the past historically. All our agenda items keep moving to the next month, to the next month, to the next month. So I think we need to decide if we're going to tackle the permitting process, which the tree topping is part of it. If we're going to tackle the priority list for the right-of-way trees. And third, the priority list for park trees. And those are three huge things that can't be on the, I don't think could be on the agenda at one time. Too big of things.
Right,
So that's why I brought up the idea of maybe committees. Maybe there's a permit committee. Maybe there's a right-of-way and park assessment committee.
mhm.
So I don't know how that
And when
works.
you say that, are you thinking that extends beyond the tree board? Like other people involved?
I don't know if that's possible, but I know it would be us. We would be able to discuss it outside of the meeting.
Right.
As a committee. Now, we'd have to go to Sam for that. But
Now, citizens can help you guys out, right? And be part of a committee.
so I don't know if we make an announcement to the town saying we're forming this committee.
You could form ad hoc committees, board of trustees just formed 2 of those, and you would just during your motion, put who from your board that you wanted to have on it. If you keep it under 2, then you don't have to public notice, and it takes away a lot of the stress, and then included in that's like in 3 members of the public who want to volunteer for it, and then you need to put down what you want them to do and when you want them to report back.
So I totally bogarted number 4 here, about tree topping concerns, because that falls under the bigger, it
Figure out
falls under the
like,
bigger permit process.
Sure, right.
So that's the discussion I wanted to bring up, and it's a little out of order here, but, because it takes in number 5 and it takes in number 6,
Right,
these committee
Right,
ideas, because, that's something we've never done before.
right. Well, I guess the question I have is the town, this tree topping, we're updating the ordinances, like that's the process we've provided ordinance suggestions, let's say, like they haven't been approved or finalized or anything, but that would include being very specific about practices on the trees within the town limits. And so, in this case, is there a protocol, like we know where trees are being topped? What's the next step? Is there communication with, the owner, like who did the work? Like, do we reach out to the tree cutter and say, hey, can we have a meeting?
It's too late. It's too late by that point. They've already done the work.
Well, that's too late on that one, but there's new trees tomorrow, that could be topped. So,
So maybe the committee's the way to do this.
yeah, what if I throw something out there? I think that, first of all, how and what each one of you guys is doing is terrific. I'm John Farrell and I have a tree trimming business. So, I'm a, concerned citizen of the area, but, because of my profession is mostly why I'm here, and because I would like to just maybe open the door towards, being helpful with you guys' board as time moves on. Tree topping is interesting because it gets a really knee-jerk reaction from lots of people that are in and out of arboriculture. And there's people who are tree trimmers like me who are not certified arborists, who, without certifications or real qualifications, they'll trim on trees. And sometimes you'll get clients, and like I just had a client in GJ, what they wanted was this cottonwood drop down, it was really big, drop down to like 16 feet so they could build a tree fort, and mostly make the thing just way smaller. So with tree topping, I would say, if it's an elm or a cottonwood, that's one thing. The main question is, whose spot is it on? Who's liable and has managerial responsibilities and skin in the game for everywhere under its canopy and its roots? And so the scenario is different, but sometimes either a client or even a public governing body or an advisory board might, with certain trees, like there's people who really like to keep a line of weed trees to a certain height, and it's like a fence or a wind barrier. And if it's for example, an elm or a cottonwood, he knows it's gonna keep springing, and you can just rehack it if you got the bar and chain oil and the gasoline. So tree topping, if it's not a weed tree, is often gonna cause its decline or have all these reasons that arborists would say, never do that. But each situation is different. So sometimes you want a tree topped. You know, but I really think that where Mark's coming from about like, let's address topics like what tree trimming practices do we want to promote? And the other questions that mostly have to do with jurisdictions and ways that official bodies have to figure out how to navigate waters is the way to go about it, not just like we're in favor or not in favor of tree topping.
And you brought up the point that this gray area, who owns the trees? I mean, supposedly the right of way trees, the property owner owns the trees. Or I'm sorry, the town owns the trees.
Right, where the trunk is,
Yep.
if that doesn't have a property line going through it, that's the determinant. But you still have people who might have huge amounts of risk, or you could have, all kinds of accidents, property damage, or hitting people, or just causing psychological anguish because it was a close call. Because the trunk is the ownership of the tree is legally where the tree is, but then it's got roots and branches.
Right. And that brings up one of the biggest gray areas that we talk about with the town. So the town owns the tree in the right of way between the curb and the sidewalk. Town owns that. The property owner is responsible for the maintenance. But then when the limbs start getting to the point where they're going to cause liability and damage, then the town has to step in. And so there's this weird thing that we really don't know, and who's going to pay for that?
Well, if
Is
the
it-
town owns all the, how does the town get all the citizens on the hook for maintaining those trees? That's a big budget item,
It's in the code.
but wow, that's a big budget item.
Well, it's a challenge and, yeah,
No.
I mean, this is
Cost.
a bigger problem. And
But, yeah, so how you want to address that is a question for both your board and your.
right,
And you brought up great points about, I mean, we see it downtown. Those branches are well beyond the property.
That's the reality.
And that's the liability that the town faces or the homeowner faces if the branches fall in a UPS truck or if they hit
Yeah,
a citizen.
there could be a propane or a gas or electric line, or there's all kinds of liabilities. Could be on a route from the schools.
So what we mostly address is the topping of the right-of-way trees that are owned by the town.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about fence rows and all that stuff. That's a different thing because those trees really aren't in the right-of-way. We don't really address those, but those are good points. But we address the right-of-way trees. And
Is it Corey is the guy, the top guy for the town for these projects?
he's a public works.
Is he the buck stops here guy for where risk gets so great that they make a budget for it? Who assesses?
Yes.
Who
Yes.
assesses risk?
Yes, he brought that up based on height above sidewalk and height above street of the scaffold branching. And right now, he noted a lot of trees that are dangerously low. So he did assess that.
right.
So that leans a lot, the town and your body lean a lot on how, on what his judgments are. Which I'm not saying that is favorable or unfavorable. It's just, that's his.
Yeah, I think that the reason I put this on here is that there was a breakdown. Homeowner didn't know perhaps to tell the town. And tree cutter didn't tell the owner that, hey, have you checked in with the town? Like those are the pieces we're trying to get in place so that our arborist Tom could go out there and say, yeah, like there's trying to be a process here. And, as you know, when it's done, there's no undoing it. So we're trying to figure out, how to best inform. I mean, several years ago, we sent out, like we've talked, Jack, over the past around, in Grand Junction, they have best practices like examination. So like if you're gonna do tree work there, you have to complete that you're doing best practices.
Gotta
right?
check out.
Seems pretty fundamental. We were trying to get that going.
They have the same issue where the city owns a bunch of trees that the citizens have, the property.
No,
owners have to-
they have taken ownership and responsibility.
That's so much cleaner.
It's cleaner. But I was told Denver is doing it like we're doing it here, which I was shocked at. But like Aspen has done, I think ultimately if you're, especially with all these mature trees, you just can't because what we've heard cost is a concern for why they go more severe in the prune job so that you're not doing it as often. But it undermines the health of the tree. It's going to create, greater risk moving forward. But that's been thrown out there, and it's hard to argue whenever you're looking at, jobs that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So, but in the near term, I feel like we just got to get the town to be aware so that they can actually get support. I mean, that's what the tree board is here for, is support. And we're referencing the inventory because we don't want to lose trees that are in good health, that are valuable, with prematurely. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's, any more thoughts on that? It sounds to me that this is going to be part of the permit conversation, and then certainly education. That this is something we talked about last month, that we have to do better with reaching out to the community.
We also need more liaison with Stefan. I think we need more, conversation with
We get
Stefan.
once a quarter,
Once a quarter?
that's all we get.
What? That's every
Yeah.
3 months?
That's
Or
4 times a
4
year.
What?
4 times a
Really?
year.
So now, hear me out. One of the things that we were talking about, that's why we have the monthly meeting of Public Works, because by the time then it
Okay.
goes to Stefan, you have a chance to come up with processes or procedures, then you're taking it to the top and go, can we put this into place? Instead of let's circle back and talk about this in 3 months, we can take solutions to Stefan and hopefully that way be able to actually get programs ready to go and actually in place and being worked on without it being held up by everything that holds everything up.
And what's the status with Leslie and the code? Because, I mean,
She's being held up by the comprehensive plan right now.
Same questions we asked
okay,
when we first met this time.
well, thank you.
So what I'd like to say about this number 4 is that what we have tried to do in the past is solve each of these issues at a meeting. It just doesn't happen. It
Yeah,
goes to the next agenda, the next
Right.
agenda, and then it's 2 years and we're
Yeah.
still talking about it.
yeah,
So if we form a committee, and I think getting the community involved, however we need to broadcast that to everybody, I think that's the way we have to do some of this stuff.
yeah.
And this
I
is
think
the
so.
perfect,
Yeah,
this permit process.
You organize your challenges so you get a couple of committees to tackle it in a way that it's dividing and conquering nicely, right?
And then,
Yeah.
and then we bring those solutions to the board meeting and we vote on it, then to present it to Stefan, or whatever we decide to do. I think that's a better use of our time for these meetings, to keep them under an hour, or keep them at an
Yeah.
hour.
that's right. Well, are we complete with item 4, tree topping for
Yes.
now?
We just gotta figure out how to form the committee,
Right, which is, you said that was gonna be
talk to these guys.
on our next,
Sure.
on the next agenda, right?
Sure.
Yeah, the challenge is that there's a lot of issues and then all of a sudden it's hard to get anything done.
If the issues were simpler, it wouldn't be so bad.
Well, yeah, I think if we literally just pick
What?
You know, it's like,
It's like we did this all last year.
exactly,
We were a committee for the,
right,
grant and for the code.
that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just say, item number 5 and 6, I wanted to talk about, but I've been thinking about it since this was established. Let me just put it out there. We have 2 inventories, so Cami Long from Grand Junction went through all of the right-of-way trees, and it's in the code tree view. It's, it's an Excel spreadsheet. Anybody can access, right? And there, he does identify trees that are high risk and in poor condition. So I'm just thinking, look, we have budget money that we allocated for this year. It's on us to take a look at those, because that's all the further we can get. But we do need to, I think a couple of those have been removed already, but that needs to be our priority, because obviously there's a risk component, and they've been determined already as poor health. So let's just start there. So I think that is a subcommittee. I think that's Tom, he's part of that committee. And that I think the thing to do is just take the list and go take a look, because that was 2021, I think, is her last, so it's been 4 years. And then, but it's hard. Is it hard right now to assess a tree? Is that right, Jack? Like, it's winter.
I'm not a certified arborist, I'm a tree trimmer.
Right.
So
What do you?
I'd be unqualified to really say yes or no.
Well,
I
that's
know about as much as you do.
Yeah,
No, now's the fine time,
you can look at it.
because the leaves are gone. You can see the structure of a tree much easier
Right.
with the leaves gone. And what Corey especially is talking about is low hanging branches that are a liability, both, I'm making this up, 9 feet above the sidewalk and 14 feet above the street, something like that. So that's what he wants to have looked at. So you're right.
Well, that sounds like a different thing to me, like what he's seeing and what you mentioned, that this is more like Cammie's assessment, and maybe some of these are in there that like it needs pruning.
Yeah.
Right?
In your meeting with Corey, did he feel he had guys that could tackle this, or it was all gonna come from outside?
Mostly third party.
Okay,
There's some stuff they can do, and a lot of it they can't because it's too tall for their equipment.
Yeah.
And also their skill level too. But most of it's just too tall for them to.
and was he gonna take out those
Apparently
trees?
before, I should just work for him once.
Was he gonna take out those trees that we designated by, there's 5 trees that we designated, I don't know, 6 months ago or so? Did you talk about that with him?
Yep. So you're suggesting that this is the priority right now, is get this part, of Public Works worked out, what maintenance needs to be done.
I think high risk or
Yeah.
start there. That's the bottom of the,
Yep, low hanging fruit.
the low hanging.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
let's start there. And then it gets complicated because, like, for me, the risk warrants, that's how we're saying we're gonna spend this money. Town's money, even though it may be in front of somebody's house, is because it's a high risk, right?
It's a liability of the town.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we don't care if it falls on the roof of the property. It's not what we're talking about.
Well,
I'm kidding.
You don't care, you don't wanna be on record for that.
I'm kidding. Strike that, please. But yeah, it's a town liability.
Yeah.
And Corey and Nikki knew all. They're aware of that. That's why they like to get some of that stuff
right.
addressed.
Yeah, so we need to move on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all I wanted to say on item 5. Anything else on that?
I just think we need to make the committee.
Yeah, I think that,
Because we cannot solve it sitting here.
no.
It's not gonna happen.
All right, so committee, that,
About that, Sam, excuse me. Can a committee be more than 2 members from our group? And then do we have to announce it for a meeting to talk about it?
If you have more than 2 members of the tree board on it, then it'll have to be a publicly noticed.
That's not a big deal though, is it?
Well, no, but it kind of defeats the purpose of making smaller committees so that you have the opportunity to get things done or meet more often and report back.
I think we can do it.
If we have more than two, you mean that if we have more than two, that defeats the purpose? Is that what you're
On
saying?
the tree board, that doesn't mean that you can't have other people. Like,
Oh, sure, sure.
Like, if Jack wanted to, or, you know, somebody else who came in like, you know, I wanna come and put some input in there. I'm
So-
just saying for legal noticing.
Limit committees to two members of the board.
Yes.
Got it.
Should be
But
easy.
do they have to be limited to 2 total in order to not have the notice?
Not for
Two,
an ad hoc.
so
Two
you
board members.
So you have 2 board members and a bunch of homies being
Yeah.
permitted.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's an ad hoc committee that's not making any decisions. They're coming back to the tree board
Yeah.
to.
okay, great. All right, ready to move on to item number 6?
Yes.
So this is sort of the same conversation, but related to town park. And I was just reviewing, this was just done this fall, right? So we have the most recent town park inventory that Cami did, came out in August 2024. So I'm just looking at this before I came over here. There are, there's a nice list, 3 remove tree, okay? Remove, boom, boom, boom. Then there's a lot of action items, prune, routine, maintain health. But then there's prune, defective, risk mitigation. There's 12 of those. You know, there's some action items and it's great to get this inventory, but if we're not doing anything with it, what's the point, right? So, and given that this is not on private property or like there's some conflict, this is just on town property. So it makes sense that we look at this list and try to move on these, especially the ones that are like exposed root flare, you know, some small things, remove girdling root. You know, there's some pruning to restore structure, improve structure. You know, there's a lot of good notes here. So I think that's a committee. And then, you know, I don't know, again, maybe the town is not equipped to do that work, but figure out. I think Corey felt like he could do some, like there's some smaller trees that are dead.
He can
over there.
take down the trees, he said.
He could take down,
Yeah.
But pruning, no, doesn't have the equipment for that.
right,
He thought he could take down, I think, most of those trees on.
right. So these are probably the same 3 that we've communicated.
You guys don't have a, sorry, I'm interjecting here. You guys don't have a budget for hiring tree workers. Is that right? It's just Corey and Public Works.
There's,
We have money that is budgeted for pruning and tree care and removal. You know, and yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for, in my mind, it's creating a grid of the priority ones, finding out what Corey can do, and then putting out, you know, an RF, what is it, RFP?
Yeah, we talked about doing an RFP.
And then thirdly, is how much of our budget we can put towards certain key pieces, whether it's right-of-way trees or park trees. Corey brought that up. I mean, we brought that up. Remember talking about that, about our budget could help them in their tree care.
But it's, you know, it's only 20,
Right.
say 20,000, it's not a whole lot of money. We could, at least we gotta move on that, I think, relative to this information.
So are you suggesting a committee for both, the right-of-way
Well,
committee and the park committee, or is that one committee?
I was thinking that, committee for, I mean, Tom needs to be on both committees.
Yeah.
They could be the same committee, but I think we're starting with the right-of-way, high risk, right? And get those figured out and then start moving on these town trees.
So maybe two committees. You thinking? Or
You
did you say
guys
just?
yourselves, just to interject again, you could have Tom and your own selves, whoever supports him, make a priority list that includes both of those categories.
That's what I originally
And
thought.
they could blend together based on your priority list. So if your budget was only $1,200, then you get whatever was first. You don't get to the second one.
Because they are kind of the same thing. They're discussing the same issue, just right-of-way trees and town trees.
Well, in my mind, there's high risk right away, and then there's high risk plus things that we can do without, that it's all on town property, but like that are small but impactful for the health of the tree. So trying to figure out like how far can we get on our budget, Okay, good there. Any other
If you
input?
guys want to let Tom know that I help him somewhat to prioritize things and walk around for either as a volunteer or affordably and just assess. Because there's so many things that balance, if you want to do something that would just take, a minute on a tree. And so how expensive is that and how how much does that solve your guys' goals?
Right.
Versus the big prune jobs or the technically challenging things or the simple removals. Like once you know what isn't gonna be taken care of by town, I'd be down to help assess.
So you'd be willing to be on the subcommittee?
Oh, no, he's on both. You're on both.
I don't wanna volunteer
You're on
tons
both
of time.
committees.
I don't wanna volunteer tons and tons of time, but to some degree, I would be happy to at least experience helping how to prioritize for your board, how to assess what would be worthwhile in terms of actually tackling with the time and the money available.
Yeah. Well, anything else on number 6?
What do you think, 2 committees or 1 committee? What do you think?
Well, I'm inclined to say 2 committees, so we'll actually, get spread it a little bit.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's more work, but certainly Tom could be on both committees if he's up for it. But I think this is right. I think we have to just pinpoint a few things that we can move on, right? We've got to get some victories here. All right, next item is item 7, consideration of grants for 2025. Tom brought this up. Colorado Tree Coalition grants window is closed for 2025, but I'm sure there's some other grants. I'm not, Christina and I put a lot of work into writing a grant last year, which we did not get. And so wanting to, just put that out there. Is that something maybe we talked to Tom about? Or because, we got a grant this last year for the town park assessment. I think it was 900, came in somewhere around maybe $700 to $900. That was good. That was helpful, right?
Yay.
Yeah, that was a victory. So, in my mind, the grant money, certainly we could explore that, but, there's planting, there's tree care, pruning, right? I mean, we need a lot.
What's your name again? It's, I haven't seen it for so long.
Christina.
What we did talk about is, and this was with the public works folks, is let's just forego any planting new trees till we get the watering protocol down, till we get all the money that needs to be spent on pruning these liability trees. So they agreed to that. They know that they scratched their heads when we said, "Where's the trees that died, guys?" And they didn't know what we were talking about. So there's just that communication thing that has to happen before we do any more new trees. That's just something to keep talking. So this year we talked about using money to take care of what we have and not focus on.
But we also did talk about like a volunteer committee for that.
The water, right?
Watering.
Yeah.
And trying to, I know this is
It's Groundhog Day. Okay.
Sam.
I thank you for reminding me by saying the volunteer committee part. I actually put out a request on our clerks list. I have a list where all the clerks all across the state are in there and stuff like that. And they actually sent me some of their programs that they have for helping take care of flowers and trees in town. I'll get those together. I'll see if any more committee get those together and send them out to you, but they had some pretty cool little Blossom Brigade. They had cool names and shirts and there was like a whole thing. So it's something worth looking into.
The biggest problem Corey, or the biggest challenge, I don't want to say problem, that Corey and Nikki talked about is liability. Because we can't access the town quick couplers. They're on a pump system. You gotta start the pump system to activate the water lines and go to those quick couplers to water stuff in the park. So they weren't sure how that could be done yet. They were gonna talk about that.
To interject, your cool little tree board could have a cheap old truck that's got a water tank.
We've talked, yeah, we've been talking about that.
And some rakes and stuff.
For sure. That sounds like I mean, just for the record, you know, there's pressure on us to get trees planted. We have planted some trees. But then without the proper care, you know, deer, water, you know, Colorado, that's what I'm saying. We have these amazing trees. We got to really protect what we have because,
Right.
you know,
It's kind of like cars. It's easy to buy one, it's expensive, but then you have to take care of it.
Yeah.
Or so it lasts.
That's right.
It's back.
Well, and with that information, it'll also give you guys the opportunity to have some communities that you can contact and talk to how they do it. You know, because these are other towns that are gonna have the same issues we do. How do we have access to this? You might end up being surprised about grants you don't know anything about or
Yeah.
people that you go to.
so that's a good point. Good point. What we need is like a time machine, go back 75 years and then plant trees.
Yeah,
Right.
for that
Stagger.
silver maples.
Well, the elms will make it.
Yeah.
I'll outlive us all.
All right, so yeah, so I think just having the conversation about grants with Tom, we could talk to Cammie Long. I could do that. Can I put that
And
as an
possibly
action
this
item?
list from Sam of other.
Yeah, I can talk to Sam, all right,
I'll get that to you.
all right, and then, we good there? Number 8, updating coach review, that was something that Tom offered. I don't know much about coach review.
I don't either. What's the next steps?
Well,
I don't remember.
He's just saying that we have this data, you know, which is a snapshot in time from 2021. And then trees are gone and they're you know, there's
Oh.
stuff happening and we're not
Yeah.
updating.
Yeah.
So part of it is not knowing how to update. He said he could inform us how to do that. So, but I think that would be the next step is just meet with him to get some guidance and then again, talk about protocol, you know, a system for what do we do when we, you know, because there's a lot of catching up to do.
Is this just with the removal of trees? I mean, it's just a count of trees. It's not the assessment, really. It's just a count.
It's just the largely the removal
Yeah.
and or planting,
Yeah,
if we're
yeah, yeah.
planting.
So
right?
it's just an inventory. It's not so much health of a tree.
No,
just
we're
an
not,
inventory.
that's not our domain, but yeah, just to track,
Gotcha.
you know, is that tree still there or not?
Yeah.
All right, so we're good on that. So that's just asking Tom when he can lead us in that.
Oh, I was on 2 committees and do this.
And what, so to synopsize this,
Yeah.
so what competes then? And what are the action items that?
I think we need a summary.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna form, and we were gonna bring committees up next month, but maybe we
We can do it right now.
do it right now.
I mean, for the people that are here, you know, pick like what,
So we're
they want
gonna
to
have
focus
a,
Yeah. Chris.
You propose.
yeah. We were gonna have one committee to look at high risk right-of-way trees that are in poor condition and report back. So that committee was going to hopefully include Tom,
It's gonna be Tom and I. I'll just.
Okay.
I'll just do Tom and I.
all right? Tom,
Christina, unless you want to do it, Greg, unless you want to do it.
no, Tom and Mark.
Okay.
And then, Jack, you were wanting to be part of the town park one?
I was thinking that I would be happy to help, just assess priorities, whether it's
Either one,
here or there.
right?
Or, yeah, just some assessing.
Okay. And then the other one was just to look at the latest update from Cami for the town park. And then, again, look at the ones that say, you know, remove. And she's got some pictures here, which are pretty nice, of specific trees in the report that have defects, risk factors. So there's, you know, we're gonna have to be looking at that. Okay, so that's two committees, and then another committee is, well, let's see,
The permitting process.
permit committee, that's right.
Well, I'll work with Tom on both of those,
I'll be on the permit
the
committee.
town and the town trees and highway trees.
I've been on the permit committee for about 40 years.
So Sam, how are these communicated to the town? How do we do that? So we can do that. That makes sense.
You got
We
one
went
shot.
putting them on the next agenda to put them together, so I'm trying to catch up.
Ooh, we're over time here.
Well, but she came late, so we started late. So we're right. What's Tom out of town or just sick? Okay,
Yeah, he should be fine.
okay, good.
And
So,
surveyor, you don't have to do all this kind of stuff.
So yeah, who else would be on this permit committee?
What's the permit committee do? What's
Well, we've already drawn up a permit,
permits of,
permit for working on right-of-way trees. That's,
that gets distributed to people who aren't the owner or the people whose property it's in front of?
yeah, the goal there is, I think the next step is probably informing all the cutters. Really, like, if you're doing work on a right-of-way tree, I don't know, what do you think, Sam?
Well, it's getting the process.
I was gonna
I
say,
mean, the whole
we're gonna have
process
to work on
of-
the process with the town.
Right.
Do anything else, because if we don't know about it, we can't enforce it.
Right.
So-
Right, well, but you know, what is on the books, not a permit, is telling the town. That is not happening, right?
So my suggestion would be that meeting in March where we're talking about right-of-way responsibilities and stuff like that with Stefan, that's your first serious conversation about permitting in the next step.
Yeah,
Would be my suggestion, just focus on those two things, getting the answer to that question.
right,
And then, okay, what do we need to do next for this, to make this permit a reality? Because then he's gonna be able to be like, we need to find this, we need to find this, we need to find this, and then you're gonna be able to use your committee the best way. But if you don't do it in conjunction with the town, you're gonna do a whole lot of work for absolutely nothing.
yeah, no, I know, but we met with him, and it became a conversation on business licensing. And it sounded great, but it's one of these things that, you know, we've been working at this for 4 years. Right now, all I want is people who are doing work on right of way are telling the town, I got this tree, so that we don't have a top tree or a tree removed that's healthy, right? And I feel like we can reach out to the cutters and say, hey, just FYI, if you're doing any work on right of way trees, please communicate with the town.
Which I agree with you. What I'm just saying though is that you need to have that conversation, because if you're gonna be reaching out on behalf of the town, you need to make sure that the town knows that you're gonna be doing it, and just me being here is not enough for that. That's all I'm trying to say, so it's just part of that process.
I mean, we've had good luck. I'm not sure how it happens, but people have reached out, right? And so it just seems like,
And it's good, it's just growing that,
right,
so.
Okay. So we have a standing at Sweetgrass again to revisit this whole permit process.
yeah,
I'll be on there with you.
okay, okay, all right.
Did you say, Christina, did you volunteer for that permit?
And I would like to work with you, Sam, in, well, you're on the committee, no.
I am not.
I would like to sort of flesh out the volunteer, I know we've done it before and, but research, for Collins and other communities that have things already going. So
You
we're
know
not
what? I
reinventing the
will
wheel.
100% make time for that with you,
Okay.
Christina. If you want to send me an email from town email, please.
Okay,
And we'll get some meetings set up and you and I can sit down.
that sounds great. Okay.
Bigger wagon.
Bigger wagon, bigger.
All right, let's move to public comment. Jack, anything else you want to say?
Well, I thought it was really ace what Mark said when he first came to tree topping and said what he said. And what that makes me want to voice is that it sounds like you guys need one more committee than what you've just talked about. And that is a committee to see, to get a cohesive sense of what your board, and this is just coming from totally the outside, take it for what it's worth. But to like organize your strategy for, obviously you guys as individuals can reach out and say, hey, I'm on the tree board for Payoneer, to contractors for, in this example of an issue that you want to address, because you guys, your hearts are in it. You can tell as a person, you can say, yeah, I'm this human being and I happen to be on this board. And would you please talk to town if you do anything on trees that are located on town? You can do that as individuals. But if you had a subcommittee that was to basically figure out how you guys want to prioritize and achieve your goals. Because it sounds like it's been worked at, lots of people have gone to meetings a lot. And I know it's easy to criticize that, and I know you probably already have had victories and you're just constantly trying to do awesome things. But it seems like you guys could use a committee on organizing how to relate to all parties, basically, so that maybe there's a campaign where after assessing what's in the top 50% or the likely in the next 2 years that we'd like to get 2 trees, if there's people who are in charge of that maintenance, you could have your board have a correspondence connection with them to say, hey, we noticed that this tree that you're responsible for needs maintenance. Are you guys gonna do it? And if not, like, we've looked at it and we think it might be within this price range to achieve this kind of a goal. Each tree is situational. And so you want to have a systematic way where the parties involved for whichever tree you talk about, you're coordinated about how you want to communicate with the different parties and address the goals that you have for that tree.
We have talked about that and we filed under community outreach. But it's kind of like a marketing thing and a community
Yeah.
outreach thing about what
Yeah.
we are. We've talked about that over the years, but we talk about it. And
Right, well, if you integrate if you don't splinter that off to just how you talk to community or land or the owners of lots that have town trees in front of them, but step back one step further, I'm thinking in my brainstorm process, then just blurting out, you also include the decision makers and have a plan about how to relate to people if they're XYZ person, they're a concerned citizen, or they want to help keep the trees watered with a little cool blossom program, as well as just like have a plan for how to connect with homeowners. So you don't have to talk to everybody, but once you know which trees are really hazardous or could be proactively addressed in different ways, then you know how to talk to Corey and the town and the citizens of that town. I don't think that committee would have to last for too long and just exist for a month or two so that you guys could say, okay, here's how we want to deal with these parties. And here's what the goals are of our board. And it's so much easier to do on a committee or a subcommittee than as the whole board, right? And then the board can be like, yeah, we like what this committee said, and that's how we'll do it. And all in favor or whatever. That's just my 2 cents. Don't make that.
no, it's good to hear that because we've talked about it. And the only real communication we have with the community is we have our little booth at Cherry Days. at the Harvest Fest.
Harvest Fest,
And
yeah.
then we do a sick tree. I don't know if you are familiar with the sick tree days. Incredible. Incredible. People sign up for it. We spend a whole day with arborists and insect guys, and we walk to every property who signed up for it. So that's our only 3 ways to
Like
communicate.
a show and tell tour.
Oh, yeah, it's
Oh,
incredible.
that's really.
It's
Oh,
incredible.
it's excellent.
People
And-
call in
and-
ahead of time if they think it's
Yeah.
different, if they think it's been too long in between and they're like, let's sick treat it.
But what
But
you
if
said,
you had a postcard campaign for every 6 months to write all the people who own property that, or to rent those houses, whoever's living there, then you wanna talk to the owners, because they're the ones on the hook for maintenance, it sounds like, where there's all this gray area. Then every 6 months or every 4 months or whatever you wanna do, tax quarter, you could say, you could make sure that you're in touch with people so that if they are hiring contractors, then they could at least have a little page printout to ensure of what pitfalls to avoid.
Yeah.
And how to make sure that your contractor isn't hacked or
Yeah,
like what you need to make sure that your contractor knows or whatever.
yeah, no, that's great. That's what we need.
And you just target it to the people that you need to tell it to. I'm
Well,
about to do a postcard campaign because I'm gonna go around and see, oh, these trees really need work, and I'm gonna get some postcards made and just be like, hey, like out of my own selfish interest, I noticed that maybe out of your selfish interest, you want some tree work,
yeah,
I get free estimates kind of deal, you know?
right.
But you guys wanna do a relationship thing, so.
thanks.
Yeah.
Talk to you.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
Right on.
Thank you.
No problem.
all right. Does that bring us to the close?
Yes,
Yep, I moved to close this meeting. Is that good by everybody?
Do we have to move to second?
I think so. No, adjournment is all. No, adjournment is done. Okay.
Really?